himself. So it's not just one man and one woman. You have patriarchs of Israel marrying multiple women, having children with not only their wives, but their wives' servants. The 12 sons of Israel come from 4 different women, and this is upheld.
There were different laws regulating who could marry who, how many wives you could have, and whether you could divorce those wives depending on who you were. There wasn't any one notion of this is a traditional family in the way that we have that today.
In the Hebrew Bible, polygamy is the norm. And in the New Testament, the few endorsements of marriage in the New Testament that get cited in order to argue for traditional marriage are passages in the letters of Colossians and Ephesians and 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus. We're not talking about traditional marriage. We're talking about a master, a free man who has one wife, but also has sexual access to his slaves.
But if the Old Testament texts suggest a tolerance of polygamy, and the New Testament is largely silent on the topic, then why has the Bible been considered so morally strict? The answer can be found in the later books of the New Testament, in the epistles or letters written by the Apostle Paul and others years after the death of Jesus. Paul, a former Jewish Pharisee and convert to Christianity, was a zealous advocate for the faith. He was instrumental in building several churches and establishing guidelines for early Christian behavior, including those concerning sex and marriage. And these guidelines often offered a radical departure from the attitudes towards sex and sexual roles found in the Old Testament.
If you've ever been in love, you know how intoxicating that is. You can think of nothing but your beloved and how much you want to be with them, that all you can think about. You can't work, you can't sleep. Sex gets in the way of contemplation of God, of the divine.
The Apostle Paul asks his readers to consider being like him, celibate, so that they could devote themselves singularly to the mission of spreading the gospel. What Paul puts forward as a recommendation in his letter to the Corinthians would later become a requirement of priests and popes serving in the Catholic Church.
In the 4th century AD, a series of papal decrees commanded that all clergy serving in the Catholic Church should be unmarried and celibate. Although there was nothing in the Bible that required it. They also restricted women from becoming priests and forced previously married priests to refrain from sleeping with their wives. But why?
Celibacy becomes a kind of stamp of one's extraordinary commitment to Christ, to the point where the most important church fathers are all celibate. The early church definitely has a very different perspective on sexuality.
There's nothing in the Hebrew Bible that says that you should be celibate. In fact, Jews believe that the first commandment is to be fruitful and multiply. And that's been sort of the traditional Jewish view all along.
In the New Testament, the emphasis seems to be on spreading the good news of the gospel. And because the early Christian community had that as its focus, there seems to be a downplaying of sexual and even marital relations.
But if, as most scholars and theologians believe, one of the most important mandates in the Bible is procreation, then how and why did traditional expressions of human sexuality become considered shameful? Was it to keep the focus on a love of God above all others? Or were there other reasons? Reasons that lie hidden in the pages of the Old Testament.
In that break, 1 minute 45 seconds remaining. Action is unavailable at this time. Pause. Button. Action is unavailable at this time. Pause. Action is unavailable at this time. Look. More to. Helpful heroes. Button.